Hello, everybody, and welcome to this A plus 1101 practice exam, where we're going to be looking at today practice exam or exam objective 1.4. So, specifically, what does that mean for us? We are going to be looking at practice questions, explanations, and be looking at what you might be asked for each of the following. First of all, the primary exam objective is 1.4, given a scenario. Configure basic mobile device network connectivity and application support. Now, specifically, we're going to be looking at each of the dot points individually, one by one. So we're going to cover absolutely everything in this exam objective. Let's take a look. We're going to be having a look at wireless and cellular data network, how to enable/disable it. We're going to be looking at the difference between 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G networks. We're going to be having a look at hotspot. We should know what a hotspot is by now. We've looked at it probably 3 or 4 times over the course of the previous practice exams that we've done, so we should be very familiar with that. So if you're not yet, you might want to go back and have a look at the previous ones. We're going to be having a look at GSM versus CDMA. First of all, what are they and what are the differences between the two? How can you tell if someone's using one or the other? We're then going to go ahead and have a look at preferred roaming lists. What is a preferred roaming list? And why is that a good thing? Why do we need it? And how can you tell if your phone is doing that or updating its preferred roaming list? We're then going to move on to Bluetooth. How do you connect a device to Bluetooth? That one's going to be pretty short because honestly, it is a pretty simple topic to go through, so that should not take too long at all. We'll then be having a look at location services and more specifically, Global Positioning System or GPS and cellular location services. How do you know which one someone is using? What does each of those mean? What are they? What do they do? We're going to be testing you on that today and explaining that in a lot of detail, so stick around for that one. After that, we're going to go ahead and have a look at MDM versus MAM. What is an MDM? What is an MAM? How can you tell the difference between the two? And that's about it, guys. Yeah, that should be good. That's going to be a really important one for your exam, so stick around for that one. And finally, mobile device synchronization. We're going to need to know all about that as well. And we're going to cover all of this throughout this practice exam. So stay put, stay tuned. I'm pumped. I hope you're pumped too. We're going to get straight to it, starting with our first question right now. What generation of wireless technology has slower speeds of 100 to 900 megabits per second? A, 2G, B, 3G, C, 4G, D, 5G. And the answer is D, 5G. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and take a look at why this is the case now. 5G is essentially one of the more modern, or is actually the most modern cellular networks that is available. And when it's eventually completely put in place, it's theorized to be offering a complete speed of around 10 gigabits per second, and the slower ranges of those speeds are going to be 100 to 900 megabits per second, right? So that's the slower range is going to be still quite fast, is essentially what that means. So those aren't slow speeds because they're very fast when compared to the other cellular network generations, but they are the slower range of speeds that's going to be offered by 5G. So they're slower when compared to the 5G standard speeds, but they're still faster when compared to the speeds of previous generations. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the other potential answers for that question and go through them. We have 2G, which has speeds of 0.1 to 1 megabits per second. So as you can see, guys, with the snail on the screen there, that's very, very, very slow, right? Particularly when we compare it to 5G that we just looked at. And generally, it offered basic voice calls and text message functionality. So if you wanted to call somebody or text somebody, 2G was fine. Anything other than that, it's not going to get the job done. The other option there was 3G. Now, 3G offered speeds of 2 to 14 megabits per second. So again, that's pretty slow. But the one thing it did do was it introduced web browsing, email, and music streaming. So there were some upgrades that came with that. And finally, we had the other option, which was 4G. Now, 4G had some higher speeds of 10 to 100 megabits per second and still offers that. That's still used today. And 4G allows for video streaming as well. So it introduced significantly higher speeds, I would say, and also the capacity for video streaming too. So you're going to need to know the difference between all of those, and you're going to need to know, just to be safe, how to identify which one of those someone is using, which brings us to what you might be asked on the exam about this topic. You might be asked, what generation is a person using based on the given information? So that means, for example, someone, the question might be phrased to the something along the lines of, Mark is using a generation of cellular network that allows for voice calls and texting, but does not allow for internet access. Which generation of cellular technology is Mark using? And you can see to the picture off to the right there, that would be 2G. That would fit into the 2G category, right? That would be the most likely answer in that instance. Now, you might also be asked, what are the differences between those generations? So, of course, you need to know what the differences are between those between all of those generations of cellular technology. And then, what generation should a person use, that's meant to say, based on their requirements? So, based on what that person needs, what generation best suits their needs? Okay, so that's what you're going to need to know for your exam. You're going to be able to need to answer questions based on those. So make sure you can do that before you take your exam. Moving on, guys, let's take a look at the next question. What is the primary function of a hotspot feature on a mobile device? A, enhancing the display brightness for better visibility. B, managing and prioritizing app notifications. C, allowing other devices to access and use the phone's cellular data. Or D, enabling hands-free voice commands using voice recognition. And the answer is C, allowing other devices to access and use the phone's cellular data. So guys, we've covered hotspots a whole heap through these previous practice exams. Like I said before at the beginning, a hotspot essentially is if you're somewhere where you don't have Wi-Fi and you have your phone on you, you can allow another device to access the cellular data that your phone uses in order to receive an internet connection, to do things on the internet. So if you're in a park, there's no Wi-Fi available, you can touch the activate hotspot button on your phone, and that will allow you to connect your laptop to your phone's cellular data and go browse Facebook and stalk that guy from high school you're wondering how they're going, or write your report and send it to your boss in an email, whatever you need to do. That hotspot feature is what's going to allow you to do that. So really, you just need to know what a hotspot is for your exam. As far as I can tell, as far as any questions I've ever answered on this in any of my practice exams and when I took and passed the real thing, that's about all you need to know. What is a hotspot? What does it do? But just to be clear, guys, just to be certain, you might be asked in relation to a hotspot on your A+ 1101 exam, is a hotspot the most effective for a person to access the internet based on a given scenario? So I think that was meant to say, is a hotspot the most effective method for a person to access the internet based on a given scenario? So should they use a hotspot, or is it easier? Does it make more sense for them to use a wireless connection that's nearby, or a wired connection? If you're in your home and you have a wireless internet connection and it's perfectly intact and it's working well, you probably don't need a hotspot. So that's kind of just a simple problem-solving one. You might also need to define what a mobile hotspot is. We should be able to do that by now. We definitely should have the capacity to do that one. And you might also need to answer a question to the rough effect of, why is the hotspot feature on someone's phone not working? If you have airplane mode on, you can't use a hotspot. If you have your Wi-Fi activated, you need to turn that off in order to activate your mobile hotspot. So things to that effect, some basic troubleshooting features. Let's go ahead, guys, and move on to the next question. Let's do it. You have been asked to create a document outlining the differences between GSM and CDMA. Which of the following should you say has the ability to enable simultaneous data and voice operation? A, GSM. B, neither of them can do this, C, CDMA, D. Both of them can do this. And the answer is A, GSM. Now, guys, GSM and CDMA are two different competing technologies when it comes to cellular devices. So we'll go through GSM first and explain that. Then we'll look at CDMA and see what the main differences are. So let's take a look at GSM. GSM allows you to keep the same phone number when you insert your SIM into a new phone. So if you have a new phone, maybe that phone breaks, you have a SIM card inside that phone. If you want to be able to take that SIM card out, buy a new used phone because you're a bit low on money, you spent too much of it on the new Spider-Man 2 game for PS5, the only one you're going to be able to do that with, insert that new SIM card into the old phone and still keep the same number, is with GSM. So if you're using a SIM card to transfer into a new phone and you're keeping your same number, you're using GSM. It also allows for simultaneous data and voice operation, so you can send data and voice information at the same time. You cannot do that on CDMA. Further, it generally covers rural areas more effectively, right? It generally has better coverage in rural areas. So that's a GSM, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at CDMA. So with CDMA, first of all, no simultaneous voice and data communication, and you cannot use a SIM card to transfer your number from one phone to another. The phone number is stuck with that phone. The phone itself actually does that identification. It has nothing to do with a SIM card. So if you want to be able to take your number to a new phone through a SIM card, you need GSM. You can't do that with CDMA. CDMA is generally considered to be a bit outdated and older as far as I can comprehend. So that's going to be a big difference between the two. But moving on, guys, to where we were, with CDMA, everyone talks at the same time, but each person is given a code to filter out data that is not relevant to them. So that's basically describing the method of identification. Instead of using a SIM card, they use that code that is given to each person who is speaking to do that identification. So SIM card, if you want to move from one phone to another phone, is generally going to be the better option. And of course, like we said, no simultaneous data and voice operation with CDMA. So that's the main differences between the two. What might you be asked on your exam? Let's take a look. You might be asked, based on a given scenario, is a person using CDMA or are they using GSM? So, they might say, hey man, Ben, he just broke his phone and he has used a SIM card. He has inserted his SIM card into a new phone but kept the same number. Is Ben using GSM or CDMA? Think about it. It's going to be GSM because he uses a SIM card to transfer the number. Or it might be a question like, Christina wants to use a cellular technology that allows her to simultaneously transmit voice information and data. What should she use? It's going to be GSM because that's the only one that allows for that to happen, right? So you're going to need to know the differences between the two, what someone should use based on their requirements, and you might also be asked, based on the requirements, should a person use CDMA or GSM? So kind of the same thing there, really. Just know the difference between the two, essentially. Now, next question, let's take a look. Your friend has been experiencing fluctuations in their phone's network connectivity and has come across the term Preferred Roaming List, or PRL, while researching the issue. They are uncertain about what a PRL is and how it affects their phone's network performance. What does the term Preferred Roaming List refer to? A. A list of preferred contact numbers for roaming users. B. A list of recommended apps for seamless roaming. C. A list of preferred Wi-Fi networks for international travel. Or D. A list that informs the phone about appropriate cell towers for network connectivity. And the answer is D. A list that informs the phone about appropriate cell towers for network connectivity. So guys, essentially, preferred roaming list, you've traveled from where you usually are. Your phone knows what cell towers to communicate with. It knows which ones have the best options. But now you've traveled down the road a little bit. You've gone interstate maybe, and your cell phone's like, whoa, I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on. I need to download an update that tells me what cell towers to communicate with so that I can get the best service. That's essentially it, guys. That's what a preferred roaming list is. So if you're moving, if you're on the drive, your phone might just need to update its data to know what cell towers to speak to get the best service. That's pretty much it, right? That's all you're going to need to know. But in relation to specifically what kind of questions you might be asked, why is a phone performing an over-the-air or OTA update while driving? So that basically means it's updating, wirelessly. And if it's when you're driving long distances, it's going to be a preferred roaming list update more than likely because it's trying to figure out what cell towers to talk to. You might be asked, why do preferred roaming lists need to be updated, right? You need to know what cell towers to talk to in order to talk to cell towers in the most efficient manner, right? So keep that in mind. And of course, you might also be asked, based on a given scenario, does the phone's preferred roaming list need to be updated? Does it even need to be updated? You might be asked to give that kind of information. So be ready for that for your exam. Make sure you know what a PRL is. Make sure you know what over-the-air update is and how that relates to PRL. And make sure that you can give advice on whether the PRL needs to be updated in the first place. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. You are trying to connect your newly purchased wireless earphones to your phone, but your earphones are not showing up in the options list on your phone. What is the most likely cause of this? A, the earphones are faulty. B, the earphones are not in pairing mode. C, the phone is in airplane mode. D, your phone does not support Bluetooth connections. And the answer is B. The earphones are not in pairing mode. So guys, for your exam, you're pretty much just going to need to know how to connect something to your phone in Bluetooth and roughly how to troubleshoot that. So if we take a look at this issue here, in order to be paired with a new phone, Bluetooth devices must be placed in pairing mode, particularly if it's a new phone, right? If you've connected before, not so much, but if it's a new phone, they need to be placed in pairing mode because that tells them, hey, look, I want you to connect to a new device, not something you've connected to before, but a new one. So I need you to be receptive and open and search for what's out there so that we can actually connect to you, right? Now, the specific steps for how you do this is going to be relatively different depending on the specific device you're doing it for, but it's going to be kind of similar. You're probably going to have to hold down a button until a light starts to flash, which will indicate pairing mode has been activated. You can then go into your phone and select the appropriate option that device is labeled and connect to that device. Sometimes you might have to input a numbered PIN to be able to do that. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so long as you've connected a couple of devices to your phone through Bluetooth, really you're going to be able to fly through this. It's not going to be too difficult for you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Kai is on his way to a fundraiser 1 hour from his house. He is using Google Maps on his phone in order to receive directions. What technology is he using to achieve this? A, NFC. B, GPS. C, Bluetooth. D, PAN. And the answer is B, GPS. So guys, essentially, if you're using Maps, Google Maps, anything like that, you're going to be using GPS in order to do that. If the question asks you, this person is using maps on their phone in order to direct them to the location that they're traveling to, what kind of location services are they using? It's going to be GPS, 100%. Now, that being said, of course, GPS involves the communicating with satellites, and in order to get an accurate location, in order to get accurate data, your device needs to be communicating with at least 4 satellites at the same time. So if it's not, it might be a bit wonky, might be a bit off. So 4 satellites at the same time. You might be asked about that in your exam. How many satellites does it need to be connecting to? Now, that being said, your location can also be based off of what cell towers you are speaking to. You might have seen in like CIA type television shows, cell tower triangulation. They can get a rough area, but it's not 100% accurate. Now, This can be used to, in addition to GPS, to give additional information, which might give a more accurate read on where you are. Think about maybe if GPS isn't interacting with enough satellites, but it does have that cell tower data, and you combine that information, maybe now they can get a more accurate idea of exactly where you're at. But just in general, GPS needs to communicate with at least 4 satellites to be accurate, and that's used when you're using maps. Cell tower data can also give location information. Generally, it can also add to the accuracy level that you get from GPS as well. So just know the difference between those two things and you'll be sweet. Everything we've gone over there is really all you're going to need to know about those two. So you don't need to know exactly like how it communicates with a satellite or anything like that. You just need to know what it is, when it's used, how to identify that it is being used. With that being said, let's take a look at what you might also be asked. You might be asked, based on a given scenario, what location service is being used. So it might say, hey, Matt is traveling in his car and he is trying to go to a gym that he hasn't been to before using maps on his phone. What location service is being used? Of course, that would be GPS in that case because he's using maps, right? And you might also be asked, what is the difference between GPS and cellular location services? We just kind of went over that, so I'm not going to do that again. So long as you know the difference, so long as you can identify when one is being used, you will be sweet. So let's move on to the next question. You have been given the task of ensuring all employee devices require multi-factor authentication, cannot install known dangerous apps, and have corporate emails configured correctly. Which of the following should you use to do this? A, MAM, B, manual configuration, C, MDM, or D, syslog. The correct answer is C, MDM. So guys, I'm going to boil it down really, really simple. MDM, or mobile device management, allows you to manage a mobile device from a distance. So like over a network, you can manage a mobile device, tell it what to do, tell it how to configure its emails, whether it needs a lock screen, things to that effect, completely configure everything about it. And you can separate the personal information on that device. If it's for an employee, you can separate their personal information from the information that you can control, so you have access to the information relevant to you, but you can't go into and change all their personal information. You can have that level of separation, but a mobile application manager, which is here, yes, is only on the application level. So if you're managing an entire device, it's MDM. If you're only managing the application itself, it's MAM. In simple terms, that's really all you need to know. But in relation to what you might be asked, let's take a look. You might be asked the question, based on a given scenario, is a person using MDM or MAM? So, which one are they using based on the information you have? Alternatively, you might be asked, based on the requirements, should you use an MDM or MAM? All right, so you're going to need to be relatively familiar with how to recognize what one is, which one you should recommend based on the situation you're in. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. We're almost there, guys. We're smashing through it. Stacy has important data on iCloud that she uploaded with her computer. How can she ensure that she can easily access this data from her phone as well? A, she should manually copy the data over to her phone. B, she should log into iCloud and enable synchronization. C, she should connect her phone to her computer using a USB-C cable. D, she cannot do this. And the answer is B. She should log into iCloud and enable synchronization. So guys, on the screen here, I've got a lot of information, but essentially you just need to understand the rough idea that there are services such as Microsoft's 365, Google Workspace, and iCloud that you can have on your desktop device, on your computer, and also on your phone, and you can make sure or allow that information to synchronize across both. So whether you access it on your device, on your laptop or your desktop, or whether you access it on your phone, you'll have access to the same information. Roughly, that's it. Other than that, you'll just need to know that iCloud generally has more synchronization options. You can customize what specifically you want to synchronize a little bit more, but as far as I've encountered, that's all you're going to really need to know for the exam. But we'll just go through this just to be safe so you can verbally hear it. So by authenticating to Microsoft 365, to Google Workspace, and to iCloud, you can enable synchronization. This means if you log into your computer and your phone, your data will synchronize across both of them. You can choose what data you would like to synchronize, but iCloud does have more detailed options. And finally, you can choose what kind of networks you will use to synchronize. You might only want to synchronize when you're connected to Wi-Fi. You might want to enable or disable network connections. You can set how much data can be sent over a cellular network, and you can enable and disable automatic synchronization. You might also be asked, based on the given information, which service is being used. So if it has a lot of synchronization, customization options, it's probably going to be iCloud, for example, right? So just roughly know what synchronization is, what you can synchronize, and which one has the more synchronization options in relation to what you can customize. And you should be pretty sweet, guys. That should really be all you need to know, so long as you have a good grasp on that. Now, guys, if you have enjoyed this video, here's where the plug comes in. You can access the complete downloaded PDF version, where you can download all of these slides over at journeytocyber.com. You can also access my learning guide. So this is where I've taken the exam objectives, I've broken them down not only to exam objective, but by dot point for each exam objective, so you can easily access them. And for each of those, I have given you comprehensive notes with key terms outlined. I've given you active recall questions that you can use to study, which is an extremely effective studying technique. I've given you simple and scenario-based practice questions with detailed explanations and answers. And for the areas that I think you need it, I've also given you detailed learning activities. So if you go there, guys, and you get that, that means you don't have to spend time figuring out how to learn, what resources to use. You kind of have it all there. You just have to work your way through that document, and you should be pretty sweet, particularly if you use it alongside Professor Messer and alongside my YouTube series. Like, that's honestly all you need to make that work. But just in case you need some more, right? Just in case you need some more, you can also get my 5 practice exams over at journeytocyber.com, where I have, again, detailed explanations. It's all broken down by exam objective if you need it. 5 practice exams with performance-based questions, all there for you, just for $30. Alternatively, you can, of course, grab both the learning guide and the practice exams with performance-based questions in a bundle, which is really good value. This is Australian dollars, by the way, not US dollars. So if you're in the US, it's going to be even cheaper for you. That being said, guys, that is my video. So if you found value in this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below. And more specifically, if you want to make sure you pass your A+ 1101 exam, head to journeytocyber.com and grab my high quality resources, because if you like this video, you're going to love what is in them. Okay, I'll see you for exam objective 2.1. Cannot wait, guys. We're going to smash that as well, and we're going to get you ready for your exam. Let's do it. See you next time.